Okay, again, quite a bit of pressure on there. I'm not so much spinning this now as using my foot to turn against the pressure that I'm putting on with this spindle gouge as I dig this in here. Now, just to make sure I'm getting that accurate, I am just going to check that with my verniers, just to make sure that I am doing 11mm. It can be tempting sometimes. Go a little bit further over. You can tell the energy I'm expending doing this, can't you? I think we're bang on 11mm there, I would say. 10, 11, yeah, I would say that's just about bang on 11mm there. So if I can keep it at that, then we're quite accurate. So that's not me being clever, that's just me keeping it to the diameter of the spindle gouge really, and not taking it any more than that. Now some of the bottles weren't 11mm, some of them went up to 12mm. And of course, when you're using a tool like this, it can be wiggled, juggled around, changed a bit, then you are going to be able to pull that hole out a little bit wider if you wish to. Now I've got a long way to go down on this. You can see how far away I am from that tape there, so I might just keep the video running for a little bit longer and then take it off while I finish the rest. But if I just hold that in there, set a bit of pressure on that, really give it a good tug. See how it slips if I do too much, so it's not going to do me any harm. Just clear away some of that, it's all pouring out. Oh, it looks like I might be able to get it out. Now sometimes the beach can be easier to hollow in the centre, and when that's the case I can just go virtually straight down it. A common wood to turn from in a period was sycamore, and you can tell why when you see how difficult it is to hollow this out. You can't feel what this is like, but I'm putting a lot of pressure at both ends and it's just spinning on that leather strap there, and you can tell by my breathing that I'm putting a bit of effort into this as well. So I really am putting my weight against this as well. So there comes a point when you don't even need the rest actually, the rest kind of gets in your way. The hole will hold the spindle gouge for you, yeah? And you've got to be careful the way this is designed, the legs of this. There's nothing sort of supporting the outside of these legs. That's partly why I'm putting my hand at the end there, so I've got some pressure pushing back against the pressure from my right hand and the spindle gouge there. So it's spinning quite a lot there now. Now that could be the fact that I just had it blocked up with a bit of rubbish in there. What I'm going to do is just clear out a bit of that there, sort of widen out the hole a little bit. It's going to widen anyway, because this hole, as you know, is going to be hollowed. Now, I was speaking to somebody the other day who said that it was known that these bottles were hollowed, even though all the literature that I've seen says that they were just bored straight down, even though the instructions were that they needed to be hollowed. Well, I don't know where that information was kept, so I haven't seen that before, but if that's the case, fair enough. But I personally thought I made the discovery myself, but if that's not the case, and whoever else realised that before, then I apologise. But anyway, I need a hollowing at the end of here, just a little bit more there now, just a centimetre or so will mean that I've got it right down to the bottom at 4 inches. And again, like I say, some will say, well hang on, these are English measurements and so it should have been millimetres. They may well be right, but as I explained earlier, these were virtually the same as the 30 Years War ones. I've been in touch with a Dutch chap, been absolutely fantastic. He's been around Europe and he's been to some of the Dutch museums as well, and the specifications he's come back to me on have shown that the bottles that they had there in the 30 Years War from around about 1618 and onwards were all, at the beginning of course of the 30 Years War, so they say 1618 to 1648. I know those dates aren't hard and fast and there's several little wars amongst them. Anyway, the point is that those bottles during that period were virtually the same as the English ones. Now we know a lot of the English troops, the colonels, etc., presumably turners as well, you know, who were in the military over there in Holland, or those that went to the academy that the Dutch had set up, you know, had these very same ones. So they brought those back and a patent was made, was sent out to all the turners to get them to make. So the measurements don't actually fit with really, I don't think it does fit with metric. It can be made into metric. It doesn't really fit in imperial. So I suspect what's happened is they brought back a pattern with them that's based on something other than imperial, and of course they've just been measured from there. That could be another reason why you've got a pattern, of course, because as long as you've got a pattern, you're making sure it's done to the size and scale that you want it. Now, as I've already explained, there's 11 and 12 on the end there. So they've had a bit of a free range of this. They haven't been Absolutely spot on. Now it's starting to rub quite a lot in there. That means that my spindle gouge isn't really doing the job there anymore. It's really rubbing against the side and causing some problems. Now I'm in a cold cellar here and it's really quite cold, and yet I've just taken my hat off there now. I'm about to undo the top of my garment there because that really is generating some heat in me here as well. You see the candles over there? That's not to give me heat, by the way. That's just to give me a bit of wax on the end of my tailstock here on the centre. Now, what I want to do now is with this tool that you've seen before already. I think I might have mentioned it to you before. This is the tool that I've made. It comes from a machine set made by Kelton. It's a Kelton hollower. This, I believe, is the most slender one they've got, the one with the least amount of curve on it. I've had a very good friend of mine from, again, another company that's been going for some hundreds of years, locally here in Sheffield. Tony Marples has actually altered this in such a way that it cuts much more cleanly rather than scraping for me. So he's done a brilliant job there. I've made the handle, of course, and fitted that, and a bit of copper tubing around there as well. So you know, it's a bit of a joint effort, but he's done me a real favour there doing that. So what I'm going to do is a bit of hollowing in there as well. Don't want to do too much because I don't want to leave the walls too thin on the edge of this bottle, on the sides of this bottle. So here we go again. Now, I'm sure I mentioned this before in the videos when we were talking about the Leeds Armouries. Why on earth would you want to hollow out this much? Because really, you know, when you're hollowing to this kind of level, you're being able to contain one heck of a lot of powder. And I don't know anybody that fires smoothbore muskets that uses even half this amount of powder. So there are all sorts of possible theories, probably that I've generated myself. Don't worry about me touching the side there, because this is just going to be the neck of the bottle and you're only going to see the neck at the end of the day. So I really don't know why we're taking so much out, except for the fact that it is a lot lighter. You notice, you get a bit of beat, so you leave this centering in here, or you just drill the hole, then what you get is a heck of a lot more weight. You really do. It's like carrying an extra 3 bottles on your bandolier. So, I don't know why I picked that one up. Really what I want to do is use my new clever tool. This one is, it does actually say the company that this comes from, but I can't see it there now. And I've taken most of it off. Again, this is another Sheffield company. And can't really see that on there. It just says Sheffield Sorby. It's a Robert Sorby, isn't it? Robert Sorby makes this tool. It's not exactly like this. I've had to grind it all down, and that's why you can't see all the rest of it there. It does say Robert Sorby there, doesn't it? So it's altered from a Robert Sorby tool. The only way I can work out how deep these are going. Now I know that this wall here, I've turned all this down, roughed all this down to 38mm. Now I want to do the hollowing while the walls are still in place rather than when I've shaped the bottle. So I'm not actually going to see how wide the walls are against the shaped bottle, but I am going to see it against what I've got here now, the 38mm. So if I jam that in there down the 4 inches, I can see I've got 10mm. Now in order to get the 4mm walls that I measured and the ones in the Leeds Armoury, I need to go down to 8mm, so I need to take off another couple of mil. Now my experience is when you start to take it out there, when you start to go down that little bit of extra, it's only a 2mm there, then it comes off really quite quickly. So I'm going to have to measure that a couple of times, and I don't have anything any more sophisticated than the tool that you've just seen there now, so I do have to be a bit careful about this. So let me just pull this up here, just so I got a little bit more leverage on that, because the pulling up of the tool, that this will push this against the sides and enable it to cut. Dropping it down is no good, because dropping it down it's simply going to rub against that bevel there. Not the best thing to do. So what we want is a nice clean hollow. Now you'll notice from that hollowing tool that I use that it's fairly straight, so it's going to measure the sides all the way from the spout all the way to the back here. So if I've left a ridge in there, it's going to hit that ridge and not let me realise how thin I've got down there. So I do need to make sure that this is fairly uniformly done. And I did notice on the Leeds Armouries ones, I don't know if you can hear me over all this because it's doing a fair amount of sort of noise in there, but on the Leeds Armouries ones, you found when you look into them, you got to about this point here and it goes into blackness, and you need a sharp torch, or a rather bright torch rather, to see further down there. So that's what they've done. They've actually created that ledge which is about there, and that's why I think this tool is probably the best way to do this. Now, some people might say to me, why do you bother doing that? It was so much quicker on a power lathe. Well, I've tried this on a power lathe, and what happens is it snags, it catches, it gets too hot. I can't actually get to the speed that I want it to be, and I've actually found it harder to hollow on a power lathe than I do on this lathe here. Not to say the other parts of the process aren't simpler, but who wants to put it on a chuck on a power lathe and then have to adjust it, put it onto this one here, and look at all the exercise I'm getting while I'm doing this. But not only that, what I'm doing is recreating history while I'm doing this, and that's the most important thing to me. So let's have a quick check in there. Notice it's not grabbing in there, so it's quite smooth, which is rather nice. It should be getting a bit thinner there. Come on, wait for that to stop. There we go. Now, I'm probably measuring this a bit early because I'm usually a bit worried about taking it down too far, but oh no, hang on a minute, I think that might be about right actually. So have a look at that. You see we're on 8mm there. That's the 8mm that we need. And we've got 8mm there. So we've got 8mm on the wall there, so that means we've got 16mm on both sides because we're measuring the walls, of course. 16mm, remember that's 38, takes 16 from 38, and you're going to get, he says breathlessly, 22mm. Okay, so we've hollowed that, and we've hollowed out the inside. It does work at 8mm, believe me. When I measure that, it'll go to 4mm sides. Do the maths while you're thinking about it, and I'm breathlessly working, doing this at the same time. Okay, so what I now need to do is shape the outside of my bottle. In order to do that, what I want to do is bung this end here, because what's going to happen is while I'm cutting into this, all this length here, it's going to rattle about. Tomo, my friend, is a brilliant engineer. He's made a fantastic tool in there, but I really am putting a lot of pressure on that end there. It's bound to, if you shove that, it's bound to have some effect on that. So I don't want that to happen. So I've got a little bung here, which I'm going to shove into there. You see how that fits neatly into there? It doesn't have to, be tight or anything like that. I don't want it rubbing on anything. That's fine. All I want it to do is just hold that nice and centrally in position, just to sort of steady it really and prevent it from moving away. So what I'm going to do in order to do that, I'll just put I've got some candles here. What I'll do is I just pour a little bit of the wax into there. You can see the sides are designed a bit sort of pointed there. So just drop a little bit of that in there. There you go, you see. And that should mean that it spins beautifully on that end here. So who needs a revolving centre, hey, when you've got a wax candle? No, you don't. So we'll just stick that one in there. Okay, and I'll bring up the tailstock. Take that into there, it should fit nicely into there. So what I now need to do is just get my marks on here and then just mark the outside of my bottle. You've probably been thinking about the maths while I've been doing this, I hope. I'm shouting out there saying, you fool, it's this. But anyway, there we go. I've got 8mm on each side of that wall at the moment. I've already turned this down flat, of course. I didn't show you doing that, because of course I did that with the top anyway, didn't I? So you see how that's done. So just mark that down there. And I know there's turners out there that know how to do all these things, probably know how to do these things much better than I do, but I've even seen better ways myself of doing it. I'm not using the better ways, I'm doing the ways that I think are going to reflect the way that these things were actually made at the end of the day. Now the tops didn't have a dimple in them, I think because they've been made in the way that I made them, and the bottoms sometimes had a mark in there. I suspect it's from that screw that's just gone a little bit farther over and they haven't had the amount of wood to be able to cope with that little bit of extra there on that screw. No rubbing on the side here or anything, so I think it was done this way. No sort of marks on the outside here where strings have been running around either. So I believe that this is the most likely way that these would have been done in the first place. Now, whether they've actually done this with a parting tool, I'm really not too sure, but that's what I'm going to use. Now, I could have just taken my roughing out gouge. I could have just taken this down to, just sort of trued it. Everyone will tell you in the books, say, oh, you must true first, and that will prevent this kind of banging that you're seeing here now, of course. But I'm not really too bothered about the banging. And another way, of course, to do it would be to get a scraper on here and just take it all the way down, or just measure how far you want it to go and then scrape it. I mean, all sorts of different ways that you might want to do this. Get it down so far and then use a skew on it. I don't know, but to be quite honest with you, the ones that I was looking at in the Leeds Armouries were pretty damn poor quality. They really were. So I don't think for one moment they were all made that way, but certainly the ones that were made there certainly were. So it's gone away from that line a little bit there, so let me just see if I can find it again. Not sure if I've gone over it. No, it's there, isn't it? Oh, we're still there. It's just this bit of a burr on the edges here that's confusing things. It's making me forget where the line is. Quite happy to accept any comments, by the way. If anybody thinks, I think it's more likely to have been done this way or that way or whatever. This is all experimental archaeology as far as I'm concerned. It'll take a little while to get that down there. I'm just going to see if my scraper will make that a little bit quicker for me. I have sharpened this recently, but it's not behaving as I want it to at the moment. So a scraper, when you're using it with different types of wood, will cut really well, or it will just rub away. So I don't know if it's working or not. There you go, that seems to be doing okay, doesn't it really? It's taking it down quite well.